Hey everybody, it's Aunt Bibi. Today is Saturday, December 12th, 2020. I'm Barb Hammer. So today, Aunt Bibi's going where she's never gone before. Yeah, Star Trek. So this is Star Trek, the original series. I've been binge watching. Um I've been binge watching programs on Netflix. I don't usually watch Netflix, but I was trying to get away from things a little bit. And I like to propaganda watch, and pop culture is a very effective means of getting certain messages across. So it's take it with a grain of salt. There's always a bit of propaganda in there mixed in, um, especially with the Netflix productions. So anyway, it's been a while since I made a video with this kind of format. A couple of weeks, I think, and over a week since I've made a video. So I've had software problems. I've had to work out, among other things, and so it's harder to. It's practically impossible to find software that lets you record um, longer videos for free, and that was the problem in the last video I made. My software extension would only make me a video that was no more than 10 minutes long for free. Anyway, I got that worked out. So anyway, Star Trek. So I've been seeing a lot of like Star Trek themes, I guess, in this whole COVID, what I call the COVID-9/11 Psyop. The Great Reset. Yeah. Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum. And yeah, the Great Reset is not just about COVID, but Black Lives Matter, climate crisis, Extinction Rebellion. Um, uh, yeah, defund the police is part of the Black Lives. Anyway, so it's like I call it the mother of all regime changes, the mother of all color revolutions, and they have to make things so bad for us that we will be desperate for any solution that they offer, any relief, any kind of no matter how bad it is, we will be willing to accept it. So Star Trek, I realize, watching Star Trek and other series, but Star Trek, I realize it's been shows like Star Trek, but I think Star Trek is a big one, but other things too. It was conditioning us to accept um, a different world, and I think it was conditioning us to accept, among other things, a technocracy, and that's what our system is imposing upon us. So this technocracy, um, and glorifying or putting on a pedestal the sciences, yeah, the cult of science. But for us, it's this corporate pseudoscience. So I've noticed over the decades that in education and academia, this STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is valued, but humanities, no, we don't need humanities. So it's very dehumanizing. Uh, I noticed this in I've noticed this in academia. The sciences come first. Yes, the sciences, and you're not really an intellectual, not really well educated unless you know the sciences. Well, I think you need a broad education, a liberal arts education, and people don't understand that term, liberal arts. Liberal arts is about having a broad background in a variety of fields, including the sciences, humanities, social sciences. Um, but in academia and in education, they want you to specialize now. So you either go into the sciences or you go to humanities or social sciences or whatever. Um, I also noticed um, in economics. So I studied economics in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was Keynesian economics. It was not neoliberal economic theory. No. not yet. It was still Keynesianism. And but when I went back to school as a mature student a couple of decades ago, I was exposed to economics again, and it was suddenly all quantitative. And yeah, it was trying to measure people's behavior. So it used to be the Keynesian economics. It was about human behaviors. It was a social science. So you're studying people's behavior in the economy. But now they want to measure everything. And quantitative economics is why I realized that was the root problem of the 2008 financial crisis. Yeah, so because they were trying to measure people's behavior, they deliberately miscalculated to bring everything down. Banks get a bailout, everybody gets a bailout, but regular folks, the corporations all get bailouts. Yeah, bailouts, bailouts. That's what we're seeing once again. Um, so anyway, the original Star Trek. So I was just a kid when it came out. I just turned 7 when it was first broadcast for 3 seasons in 1966. And I remember staying up and watching it with my older siblings. I was the youngest of 4. And I think it was probably broadcast on the weekend because I wasn't normally allowed to stay up that late. I think it usually had to go to bed by 9 or so on a school night anyway. Anyway, I remember vaguely. And we had a black and white TV, so I never saw it in color for ages. Finally got to see it in color when it was broadcast in reruns when I was an adult. And but also they're edited, so it's kind of nice to watch them on Netflix, unedited in color, the full length episodes, including the 2 pilots that they made. Um, and it's very 60s. The look is very 60s. The values that they're putting out, it was considered ahead of its time. And even though the leads were all white men, they had a very diverse cast for that time, especially. So they had minorities portrayed in positions of responsibility in a positive light. So yeah, very progressive. But I do think they were conditioning us to accept this technocracy. And the production, it looks kind of cheesy now, but it was not bad really for the time. Um, Pretty slick. The acting is funny. The writing was pretty good. The sequel, the other Star Trek series, never appealed to me. I think because there was sort of a literary flair to the original series. I think I don't know. I didn't really watch much of the other series. Um, um, so everybody has like a favorite in the original Star Trek if they watched if they were sort of a fan. I'm not really a Trekkie, but I enjoyed it. So I always like Dr. McCoy, played by DeForest Kelly, because he was sort of seemed like a gentle soul. He was a Southern guy, and I was from the South, so it appealed to me. Um, I liked Uhura too. I thought she was an interesting character. Nick, what was her name? Nichelle Nichols. I think that's what her name was. Yeah, Nichelle Nichols. Anyway, so lots of Star Trek themes that we're seeing now in this COVID 9/11 psyop. Oh, one thing I want to mention. So, yeah, Star Trek. There's this novelty song that was made uh, in late '80s, and I remember hearing it all the time on the radio in Australia when I lived there, and it was very funny. And I've mentioned it to people, and they don't seem to be familiar with it. And I looked it up because it was a UK group that produced it called The Firm, So the novelty song was called Star Trekkin'. And so it was big in the UK and Australia, but I don't think so much in North America, US, or Canada. Um, but it's hilarious. I'll give you the link in the show notes. So it's very funny. So they have the different characters saying their cliche lines, but it's very funny way they're phrased. So they have Captain Kirk, the William Shatner character, um, saying, "We come in peace, shoot to kill." And they often said, "We come in peace," or along something along those lines in the Star Trek. But there was a lot of violence in that show, so it was very much Cold War, Vietnam War era. So it reflected that. So we're once again in the cold in another Cold War era. So um those are some parallels that you can draw. But anyway, Star Trek themes right now. Operation Warp Speed. Yeah, so Warp Speed. So when this was announced back in the spring, people were rolling their eyes and they were sort of suggesting that Trump had come up with the name. Well, I don't think Trump came up with the name. He just announced this. So, warp speed, I think in Star Trek that was the speed of light. So they would go warp 1, warp 2, whatever. So, Operation Warp Speed is to develop, manufacture, and distribute COVID-19 vaccines, get them out, and using the military to roll them out too. So, definitely a public private partnership, which is fascism. Yeah, merger of corporation and state. So, government doing what big business wants. So it's all about getting the big pharma toxic vaccines out there fast, not necessarily safely. And I realized watching Star Trek that Dr. McCoy, he definitely is a big pharma vaccine darling. Dr. McCoy is constantly injecting things into people, pumping drugs into them. Another thing is when they have some mysterious virus or disease that needs to be cured, Dr. McCoy, in a few days or less than a week, he has to come up with a vaccine. So, yeah, everything has to be fast. This is the other thing in our society, everything has to be fast. We got to do it fast, or it's no good. It's got to be fast. So that's Dr. McCoy. He is Operation Warp Speed about getting those vaccines out. Yeah, so that's funny on the show. But yeah, warp speed. Yeah, there you go. Operation Warp Speed vaccines. Dr. McCoy injecting vaccines into people and developing them fast. Um, Other thing is Space Force. Yes, Space Force. So that logo, and people were laughing about that. So this Trump also announced, I guess it was late last year, the Space Force. So this is another excuse for just pork pork barrel spending, just excessive spending in the military. It's another branch of service. So it used to be um it used to be the part of the Air Force. Wait a minute, let me bring this up. Yeah, so it used to be the Air Force Space Command, and that was created in the early 1980s. Yeah, the Air Force Space Command, and so the U.S. Space Force is just um, it's I guess it's still part of the department of the Air Force. Okay. But I think it is. It's a new branch of service. I guess maybe it's still affiliated with the Air Force. I don't know. Anyway, so the logo. Everyone's going on about the logo. So the logo, it's this arrowhead, and that comes from the Air Force Space Command, the arrowhead in their logo. But people were noticing that it looked so much like the Starfleet Command arrowhead, and it does. So the Fleet Command logo would be from the late 60s, and the Air Force Space Command, that wasn't until the early 80s. So I don't know. It's like life. It's not art imitating life. It's life imitating art. Yeah, it's life imitating art. Um, the other thing, oh yeah, so the masks. The other thing is the masks, the ridiculous masks and the suits that people started wearing. And one of them, I saw people wearing these like space suits on the subways, and they sometimes reminded me of this. This is from Star Trek. This There was an episode or two where you could see these spacesuits and the masks that I saw. Not so much as suits, but anyway, there were space people wearing spacesuits, like hazmat suits. But this is the kind of headgear that I was seeing sometimes, just ridiculous, and it reminded me of Star Trek. So, life imitating art again. Yes. Um, Oh, the other interesting thing is, of all things, the Chinese National Space Agency has this arrowhead too. That's the other thing that's kind of weird. So in this COVID 9/11 psyop, they're using celebrities a lot, and among the celebrities they're using uh, is William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk on the original Star Trek series. And sure enough, he's doing the bidding of the government. I guess the pay's good. And William Shatner is always known for just doing whatever for money. He is a shill. He is a corporate shill. And here I'm calling him Bill, corporate shill Bill the Brown Shirt Shatner. And this was the original family spelling, Schattner. Is on board for COVID 9/11 right wing fascist Great Reset. So many things from Star Trek are being used today, especially Operation Warp Speed, military rolling out of toxic big pharma vaccinations. But anyway, William Shatner is pushing this government of Canada COVID alert app, and I remember they were pushing an app on me when when I was returning to Canada from my trip to the U.S. And I was definitely not going to use or download an app. It involves contact tracing. Anyway, so I filled out a paper form about my plan to self isolate or go into quarantine for 2 weeks, even though I wasn't sick. No, wasn't sick. I don't know anybody who's had COVID. Um, and people that I've talked to, they don't know anybody who's had COVID either. Um, so William Shatner, he says, my fellow Canadians, the government of Canada has developed a phone app as a preventative measure for COVID exposure. Let's keep our loved ones and our community safe. Um, yeah, so William Shatner, he's lived in the U.S. for decades. I think he lives in the Los Angeles area. He has a number of homes. He was just divorced, and I think he had to give up one home, a Kentucky farm, horse farm in Kentucky to his ex. Anyway, so yeah, I don't think he's ever gotten U.S. citizenship, even though he's lived in the U.S. for decades. Um, I'm from the U.S., but I have Canadian citizenship. I have dual citizenship, no big deal. Um, so yeah, William Shatner, Star Trek. The other thing is, among the other science celebrities, is Bill Nye, the science guy. So he's pushing masks, the science of masks, so corporate pseudoscience, the cult of science, the cult of science. Bill Nye got his start on a local Seattle TV sketch comedy show in the 1980s, and I remember watching that. I would visit my sister who lived in the Seattle area, and it was called Almost Live, and it came on right before Saturday Night Live on Saturday nights. And so he's an entertainer. He he's got his start in sketch comedy, but he has a basic bachelor's degree in engineering, not health science, and I think he worked for Boeing. Yeah, it was mechanical engineering, I think, was his field. So he's a longtime corporate shill who pushes pseudoscience, the cult of science. And he even appeared on Dancing with the Stars to revive his failing career. So yeah, there's Bill Nye the Science Guy. So yeah, so the technocracy, we must believe, we must be very deferential to science, we must believe, yes, yes, we must believe. Um, the final thing I want to mention, and I don't have a tab up for this, but recently there was an Israeli security official or a space official who warned about um, an alien an alien invasion, or he was talking about yeah, a galactic federation. The aliens have a galactic federation, and that sounded so much like um the Federation of United Planets um on Star Trek. That was the other thing. So the timing is weird, just as Trump is leaving office, and they are just they're pulling tricks, more Star Trek tricks on us. Um, yeah, so conditioning us to accept this. Yes, there's Galactic Federation out there, and they might invade soon. And I don't know, it's like we're in this middle of this dark winter, and this Israeli of all people. Yeah, so apparently the aliens, they only trust communicating with the U.S. and Israel, and that's very strange. So things are just ridiculous. So Star Trek, the original series, Star Trek is very entertaining, but I think it was being used to condition us over the decades. Yeah, that and other things, but that franchise, and it's um, accepting a technocracy, a system of government, a system of rule where science rule is supreme. Now the original series had a lot of human elements to it. That's what appealed to me. But I think they were just kind of sneaking things in there. Pop culture is so effective, condition us to accept a technocracy, be deferential to science, and the fast. And thank you, Dr. McCoy. Yeah, you can get those vaccines out there in a few days. Yeah, fast. Operation Warp Speed. Anyway, I guess that's all for now. Thanks for your patience, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.